Hey everyone, John here, and in today's video I'll be starting the in-depth progression guide for Tree of Savior. I hope this video will be informative to new players and people who don't even play the game. There's a lot to go over, so here's a quick overview on what we'll be covering. Weapons, armor, and ichors, accessories, enhancing and transcendence, awakening and gem enhancement, cards, hair accessories, and finally, collections and titles. To start off, we'll focus on weapons, armors, and ichors, as I believe they are the most important part of gearing up your character. To start off, let's take a look at the 4 different tiers of armors and weapons. There's magic armor and weapons, which are blue, rare armor and weapons, which are purple, which usually have the prefix Berthus, unique armor and weapons, which are orange, which have the prefix Primus. This also includes raid tier armor and weapons, which are Ignis, Wastrel, and Osseo. And finally, legend armor and weapons, which are yellow. For this video, I'll be mostly focusing on Velkoffers, as Soulmaky is a bit outdated in its old raid content, but I'll still be talking about some Soulmaky accessories. To start, we'll look at the random drop geared. These armors and weapons drop randomly from field monsters, challenge modes, and hunting grounds. Randomly dropped gear can roll different mods on it. Much like Path of Exile or Diablo 3, items can have different amount of mods as well as different rolls on those mods. Mods are placed into different mod groups. There are green mods, which give stat bonuses, blue mods, which provide defensive bonuses, purple mods, which give miscellaneous bonuses, and finally red mods, which give attack bonuses. On the screen, you'll see an example magic armor with 4 mods on it, 1 green, 2 blue, and 1 purple. The green mod can be any basic stat such as Dex, Strength, Int, Con, or Spirit, while blue mods can roll a variety of defenses and resistances, and purple mods are a bit unique as they can roll a various amount of stats such as loot chance, stamina, HP, crit resistance, and a bunch of other useful stats. Armors can only roll purple, blue, and green mods, while weapons can roll purple, green, and red mods. Looking at the 3 different types of rarity, magic armor has the lowest mod rolls, rare has the second highest, and unique has the max mod rolls. For example, if you have a green stat, the max you can roll on a magic armor is around 31. For rare and purple items, it's around 41, while Primus armor or orange items, it's 49. In general, green stats are the most sought after mod for the raw stat increase. For armor, purple is the second best as it can roll block, HP, and crit, while blue mods are generally not sought after as some of the rolls can be pretty bad property resistances. An ideal armor for most players would be 3 green, 1 purple armor. For example, I have on the screen a well-rolled chest piece. It has all the main stats a physical DPS would want and crit chance, so this is a very good Primus armor that you would want. For a new player, I would definitely recommend 20 to 40-ish con, and an additional green for your main stat, whether it be strength, int, dex, or spirit. And any additional stats you can pick up are just going to be a bonus. There's 2 additional topics I'll be covering a little bit later, which is rerolling and ichoring. So don't worry if you have 3 green, 1 purple and they're not to your liking, or you have a cloth top and you want to wear plate, because you can ichor them and reroll them. Armors in this game consist of shoes, gloves, chest, pants, and shield. Even though shield is in the offhand slot, it still has the same mod roll table as all the armor. What I said previously about the green stat roll being the max of 49 for Primus is true for all armor types in this category on screen. Moving on to weapons, the rules for mods are mostly the same with a few differences. Instead of blue mods, weapons will roll red mods instead. Red mods can have physical attack, magical attack, added property damage, or increased damage to certain monster and armor types. For example, on the screen we have a 2-handed weapon that has a red mod that adds psychokinesis property damage. One-handed and two-handed weapons also have slightly different rules for mods. One-handed weapons can roll up to 4 mods, while two-handed weapons can roll up to 6. The max rolls on one-handed and two-handed weapons are also slightly different. While I couldn't find the exact numbers online, the max roll for green stats on Primus weapons is well known. One-handed Primus weapons can roll up to, I believe, 74, while max rolls for two-handed Primuses are 90. Before we move on to raid items, I want to talk about the re-identification process. You can re-roll mods on your weapons and armor through the blacksmith through re-identification. For example, on the screen I have a purple armor that I want to re-roll. It has 3 green mods and 1 purple, but the stats are kind of low and the loot chance is a bit low as well. So you can talk to the blacksmith to start the re-identification process. If you click on re-identification, you'll see that a menu pops up, and if you drag your item there, you see that you can re-roll the item for knuckle powder. You can get knuckle powder through dismantling your old gear. So if you have old gear you don't want, you should probably dismantle it. So when you re-roll an item, it'll keep the same mods as it had before. So right now it has 3 green and 1 purple. And when I re-identify the item, it will also stay 3 green and 1 purple. This might sound a little bit confusing, so it's faster to show you an example. So I re-rolled the item, and I get a new set of mods. The purple changed from loot chance to block penetration, while the strength changed into 19 from 35, int changed to 20, and spirit went to 17. The green mods can change into entirely different green mods as well, so the strength could have changed to con, or could have changed to dex. I can re-roll it again and I'll show it on screen. So if I press the re-ID button again, you'll see that this time it rolled strength, con, and dex instead of strength, int, and spirit. Rerolling is a powerful tool, but I would not recommend it for a new player as it can get quite expensive, so you should really only do this when you know what you're doing and maybe build up a little bit of wealth. Also to note, Primus weapons require Sierra powder to reroll. Sierra powder can only be obtained by dismantling orange or Primus weapons and armor, so it gets quite expensive to reroll Primuses. Moving on to raid tier weapons and armor, you can find a list of raids on the F10 menu. If you hit F10 and hit unique raids, a list of all raids will show up. You can see that Osteomage, Magic Research Facility, and Astral Tower are the current raid tier at level 380. Magic Research Facility drops Wastrel gear, so it's known as the Wastrel raid, while Astral Tower drops Ignis gear, so it's known as the Ignis raid, and the Osteomage is just the Osteo raid. These raids drop recipes for raid tier items. These items are fixed stat items that tend to be a lot better than the randomly rolled items. As you can see on the screen, by clicking on the little icons, you can see what drops from the raid itself. It gives you an entire loot table. And looking on the screen, we'll see an example Osteo two-handed sword. It has a roll of 121 dex, which is impossible to get on one of the randomly rolled pieces, so these raid tier items tend to be a little bit better, or a lot better in some cases, than their Primus counterparts. Looking at the Wastrel two-handed sword as well, it gives increased movement speed while Cyclone is active. This is another great stat that can't be found on Primuses, so depending on your build, most new players will probably want to get a raid tier weapon. Wastrel and Osteo weapons are very good, and most players will be searching for them, and I recommend new players search for them as well. This is not to say raid tier weapons and armor are always better. In some niche cases, some randomly well-rolled Primuses can be better for the builds of some players, but as new players, these Wastrel Osteo Ignis gears roll very high stats way above most Primuses, so if you're starting out, these raid tier items are what I would recommend. Finally, we'll take a look at the Legend gear Velkoffer. This will also cover Ichors, as you need to Ichor old gear to use your Velkoffer. On the screen, we have a plain Velkoffer Greaves. You can get this by doing the Velkoffer raid and trading in 12 Velkoffer fragments. As you can see, the Velkoffer gear does not have any stats in it. While Velkoffers have the best physical and magical defense, they are initially empty. To put stats into Velkoffer gear, you do this through a process known as Ichoring. Ichoring is where you take old gear, such as Primus or Raid gear, and you turn it into an Ichor. When you Ichor an item, it will be completely destroyed and turned into its Ichor form. and then you can insert that Ichor into the Valkoffer gear, and the Valkoffer gear will gain the stats of the Ichor. Let's take a look at an example. Here on the screen we have Ignis Greaves, which are top tier shoes. If you successfully Ichor it, it will turn into the Ichor as shown, which is the Ignis Greave Ichor. You then insert the Ichor into the plain Velko Greaves, and it will turn into something like this. The stats of an Ignis Greave with the defense of Velkoffers. This is endgame armor that can take weeks to craft just a piece. To Ichor armor or weapons, you must go to the legendary blacksmith amphetamine at the top right. This is the blacksmith in which you can trade Velkoffer fragments, transcend your Velkoffer gear, Ichor, and insert Ichors. This guy does it all. Click on the extract Ichor option to attempt to create an Ichor. The cost of trying to Ichor an item is Sierra powder and an extraction kit. You can buy the extraction kit from the blacksmith at 100k. It might be up or down price depending on the tax of the city. Every failure will cost your armor or weapon 1 potential. So for example, the Primus I have has 10 potential, which means I have 10 tries. The chance of success is 5%, which is very low. This is a very RNG heavy, and you'll probably blow up a lot of weapons or armor in the Ichor process. If you finally do succeed, you'll get an Ichor for your Velkoffers. And that's all for weapons and armors for this video. Just a note, with the introduction of Rebuild, Velkoffers have been buffed a lot, so they are by far the strongest weapons and armors. I would highly recommend trying to get these as soon as possible, which means gearing up to do the Velkoffer raid as soon as possible, as you can only do the Velkoffer raid twice a week per character. You'll still need a bunch of other equipment to Ichor, so I still recommend for new players to get the Yasuo and Wastrel weapons and some decent armor to start off, so you can actually do the Velkoffer raid. This is it for part 1, and I'll go more into detail in my next video, where I'll talk about accessories and transcending and enhancing your armor and weapons. Thanks for watching, and hope you guys can subscribe for upcoming TOS content.